Okay, so production that's eco-friendly in the supply chain from E to Z. Now, what's driving these important topics? We have companies that want to reduce their carbon footprint because of ESG. We have governments all over the world that are very concerned about emissions, CO2 emissions, greenhouse gas, and we've already seen in Europe where the EU have imposed several penalties on companies that are not meeting their emission standards. And in US, we have, of course, the 10 ZEV states. And finally, I'm sure everybody in the room have witnessed protests all over the world where people, consumers, are demanding governments to take more action when it comes to climate change and what governments are doing all over the world. So we've got three very esteemed panelists here who come from different industries and will share their perspective. So I'm going to ask Eva from Mercedes-Benz. Over 100 years ago, Mercedes-Benz invented the internal combustion engine. And historically this year in Frankfurt, Mercedes-Benz announced at some point in the future, we will have the end of the internal combustion engine. A company that is so historic in the automotive history and has a workforce all over the world with suppliers that's built around the internal combustion engine, we'd love for you to share with us how does a company evolve its culture and how do you think about the supply chain from A to Z?
Thank you very much. To be precise, 136. It was 1885, Gottlieb Daimler invented the first combustion engine. The horsepower was 1 horsepower. Talking about the revolution in the automotive industry, I could answer just in one question. Technology knows no perfection and research no end. What was 136 years ago, it's no valid now, because we are, as the automotive industry, on the threshold of a transformation which goes far beyond alternative drive system, powertrain system, like our favorite electromobility. We do not offer cars. Mercedes-Benz, Daimler does not offer only cars. We offer mobility. Why is it? Why this revolution? Because we have to live up to the expectation of our customers and of the society. So we have to present answer to challenges everybody faces nowadays: CO2 emission, climate change, not optimal road safety, which is 1.5 million casualties on the road each year. In the urban agglomerations, you have air pollution, you have traffic jams, you have lack of parking slots, you have noise, and so on and so on. So the whole automotive industry has to answer this. And our answer is not only offering free emission cars, which we offer since 2009. The history goes long back because the first no emission car was built actually mid-80s. So we offer a fleet of electric cars like electric smart family, EQC, plug-in hybrid, and so on and so on. We estimate that until 2025, 1/4 of our fleet will be electrified. Everybody can see a beautiful Mercedes-Benz EQC, purely electric car on the stand of Mercedes-Benz on the expo area. But it is not only the end product. We are responsible for sustainable mobility from the first step, means research, procurement, over production till the product. And the best example is our strategic investment in Poland, in Jawor, where we are just about to build a factory of conventional engines and electric batteries. And this plant, which will employ over 1,500 people and will produce 500, 600, 700 of engines and electro batteries, will be powered only with renewable energy. So this is our answer, how to be responsible, not only offering you the end product, but also the whole manufacturing process should be zero carbon print, and it is possible because we discovered a special law in Poland. The name is third-party access, which means that two partners, in this case Mercedes-Benz Manufacturing Poland as company building the factory, and the company VSB, which operates a wind farm in Tachalin, close to Jawor. We signed a contract, and the third party has to offer us the transmission network. In this case, it is Tauron, Polish company. So this very plant will be the first plant of Mercedes-Benz, and I'm very proud that this is in Poland, because we have factories in 35 countries all over the world, and this factory will be powered exclusively with renewable energy. So this is the answer of Mercedes-Benz.
Well, that's great to hear, Eva. I mean, I think the whole supply chain issue is so important because we at Fisker think about all these issues as well. What is the source of energy? For example, in a paint booth, whether you use water or solvent-based. Of course, the drivetrain, zero emissions. And then some of the other more eclectic subjects of your interiors, you know, vegan interiors, recycled, renewable interiors. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about the more exciting topic. And Robert, I know you gave a speech earlier about Northvolt, and you're building one of the biggest factories in Europe. One of the questions we get at Fisker, I'm sure, Eva, you get it too, is lithium-ion batteries require mining of rare earths. How can that be sustainable? And then when we get to high volumes, we will have a stockpile of batteries. What is the end of life, or what is the second use, or how are you going to recycle these? Could you share with us a little bit how you think about these topics at Northvolt?
Sure. Thank you very much. Though both are great questions in terms of our activity here in Europe. In Northvolt, first of all, the location of the gigafactory when the cells, lithium-ion cells, will be produced has been chosen Scandinavia, Sweden, far north. There was two reasons of that. One reason was because of the access to the cheap renewable energy sources, mostly from hydropower plants. But the second reason is that in the area, in the Scandinavia, northern Scandinavia, there is a couple of operated mines and also some kind of recognized deposits of rare earths. So we will be able to cover our supply chain in the long term with 50% coming from Scandinavia. So this is the one thing. We are preventing the situation to build a supply chain, as I mentioned during my presentation, from a different location with some difficult geopolitical situations and unethical way of gathering the rare earths. So that's why this is our answer, Northvolt answer, to make this sustainable supply chain for the producing of the battery cells. And from the other hand, when we're talking about the end of line, one of the part of our vertical integration will be a recycling facility. So when we're talking about this process, we are going to close the loop to use this recycled materials and put into the loop again as active materials. Our goal is to make it with 50% of our demand for the materials for the production line. So we are covering both part of this life cycle of the batteries, right? Starting from the supply chain and gathering the rare earths for this in a proper way, in a sustainable way, in an ethical way, ending with this recycling process, which we are going to be, it will be one of the most important part of our vertical integration under one roof. So this is a Northvolt answer to that, and we believe, and we are one and only right now, together with this green concept of the manufacturing. So that's how we see it, and that's what we are doing right now.
Great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Chris, we talked a lot about energy, and we heard from Eva what they're doing in Poland, and we hear from Robert what Northvolt is doing in Sweden. Could you share with us what kind of public-private partnerships we can achieve where there's more availability of renewable energy in the entire supply chain, because that clearly requires investments. And also, on the other hand, beyond renewable energy, where do you see public-private partnerships that can bring more sustainability in the supply chain?
Thank you. I think that to start off, we need to see where we're going. And my colleagues alluded to that, but what is happening in Europe is that we want to have basically decarbonized economy in 2050. And I think that's the first thing that the public sector can do. So to give you long-term perspective, objective, where you headed. And I think that when you have this already on paper and binding, then you could have decision whether to build a factory of traditional combustion engines or not, and when these decisions start to becoming obsolete. So I think that is the first thing, regulation, clear with long-term goals. When partnerships are important, for me that's with research and demonstration. I think that still we're discussing about green value chain, supply value chain, but these are still not business cases. So the public sector needs to step in. And of course, one is investment directly in startups or in creating the environment for startups. That is very important, but also building the ecosystem. I think that is a very, very important role of the public sector, to create conditions for private companies to thrive. And demonstration, we have many technologies today that we think could win the race towards the future, but where the authorities could help is to step in and nudge these technologies forward with some regulation or as well money, because without these, then the transition will be very, very difficult, because we have industries, internal combustion engine, we have traditional energy based on coal. This could thrive for years to come, but the public authorities should actually stop them somehow and nudge the green change.
Well, we have a huge push from the consumer. The consumer all over the world has become very aware. They want to be part of a movement. Everybody is aware of climate change, all the issues generations to come have to deal with. So there is a big push, and I would like to put up the question, which is for Eva really, on how much renewable energy does Mercedes fabric use? And I'm assuming it's related to the interior of the vehicle. So when it comes from sourcing fabrics, or it comes from sourcing any interior products or any other products, do you have guidelines on your supply chain on what levels of sustainability they need to have, or do you think in the future you would impose such guidelines?
Of course we do. Daimler AG is partner of the United Nations Initiative Global Compact. We also signed the Millennium Goals, and we have a lot of internal code of conduct, code of procurement, and so on and so on. And we really track back our supplier and our sub-supplier because it's not easy, but we try to do it. So we try also to speak with our supplier about energy. For example, very often I get the question, do you have Polish supplier for your Polish factory? And the answer is, we do, but we would like to have more, but they have to stick up to some standards. For example, they should be green, and they are not yet. So I think the impact and the impulse comes for more environmental friendly cars, if it's PPP or another systems. I'm not an expert in that. But the impulse comes also from business, from potential investors in Poland, because the investor asks, what is the mix of energy in Poland? And we know that this is suboptimal. I don't know exact figures. I can only tell you that we try to be compatible and energy effective. And one figure I have in my mind, so in 2018, compared to 2017, we reduced our energy consumption by 2%, while the production rose by 6%. So it gives you the direction we are going.
In the last few sessions, we talked a little bit about charging infrastructure and whose responsibility really there is. And at Fisker, we sometimes make a joke, if every car company decide to make gas stations, it would be a very difficult infrastructure if Mercedes customers could only go to a Mercedes gas station. Chris, what do you think is the role of the public sector in a charging infrastructure that would allow mobility in the widespread community?
I think that the role of public sector in terms of charging infrastructure development is, first of all, reducing regulation as much as possible. So the investors in charging infrastructure could do it very easily. For example, in Poland, you sometimes have to wait more than 1 year to get a connection from the electricity supplier to actually install a charging point. That's ridiculous if you want to spend your money, if you have investors' trust and you want to build up a company in charging stations, and then you cannot meet your targets because you wait and it's not up to you to meet the targets. So I think first thing, reduce barriers as much as possible. And I think some experts say that the public money should go into developing the infrastructure. I'm not so sure. The public didn't invest in petrol stations either. I think when you have a certain amount of electric vehicles, it goes in tandem. It's not what comes first. They have to accompany themselves. You have more cars, you have more infrastructure. So I don't think that the money spending is necessary, but I think on the regulatory front, any support possible is the way to go. Tax reductions, regulation cuts, all the rest of it.
Okay. In the interest of time, I'm going to ask one last question to our panelists. So one of the important topics in any company is human capital. And as we enter into electrification disruption, where we are breaking technology barriers, as you mentioned earlier, Eva, we are building new technologies. Robert, tell us how Northvolt is creating human capital with the sustainable mindset, both from a technical standpoint and also thinking sustainable generally in the supply chain.
Yes, this is a challenge, especially nowadays when you look in the labor market. But finally, we can make this really great employer branding as a very attractive place to work and also to engage and to gather the best specialists and best experts from all over the world. I mentioned that we have so far we have 50 nationalities already in Northvolt, in whole Northvolt, and over 500 employees today. And we are growing very, very fast. And we've got the great HR team, which makes a lot of great job to recruit the best specialists from all over the world. This is most important because we will be succeed based on our people, on our team. And the team, this is the most important. The people and human resources is the most important thing for our operations and for our executions.
Well, did you want to say just one line for the audience with respect to sustainability? Eva, I'd go with you first.
Maybe a look into the future, because I saw on the screen the question if the company would compete about lithium, ionium, and so on. I began with the statement that technology is never perfect and there is no end to the research. Maybe on the next impact we will be talking about a post-lithium-ion battery. Chris?
I think that one sentence is that the future is green, and it has to be green from A to Z. So that's it. In mobility, that is the future.
Yes, so I would like to readdress what Chris said and highlight special for Poland, because this is a challenge. And if we want to, as a Northvolt, to expand our activity here in Poland, we have to base on renewables. So green is a key in the manufacturing process as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.